We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230, KGEO, 1410, KERI, now in Albuquerque, New Mexico at 1000 KKIM, and 3 times a week on the Internet on knookmedia.com. Our guest by phone is Pete Peterson, who is running for Secretary of State. He's one of 2 people. He's the Republican running. And Pete, I understand that assuming either you or the controller wins, the Republican running for controller, that'll be the first time that Republicans had a statewide office since 2006? Is that
I have won a statewide office, right? Yes. No, I think, and that's part of one of the real lessons I've learned out on the campaign trail for the last year. It's in part of my job is just making sure that voters know, especially those that are Republican voters, that there's a real opportunity this year. And so part of it is talking about the importance of the office of Secretary of State, but part of it is just encouraging voters who maybe have lost hope that Republicans can win statewide office, that in this particular year, because of the corruption that we've seen on the Democratic side up in Sacramento, that there's a real opportunity here.
So you're running against Alex Padilla, and he's a lifetime politician, and wouldn't you think that he's just using this as a stepping stone to a future spot?
Yeah, I think this is really one of the messages of my campaign, that I really believe Alex is running for the office of Secretary of State, and I'm running for the job. And he's already said on the campaign trail to people who've reported back to me that he's already got his eyes set on Dianne Feinstein's Senate seat in 4 years in 2018. And this kind of what I call this Sacramento merry-go-round is a dynamic that, quite frankly, really gets underneath my skin. I think we should have people running for office that really want to fulfill the responsibilities of the job that they're running for, and not simply see it as a stepping stone. And almost everybody I know who's spoken with Alex, even friends of his, remarked that this isn't really an office that he has much passion for or background in. He really does see it as a stepping stone onto higher office.
Was he being termed out as a senator?
He is. So he termed out of he left the city council in L.A. after 8 years. He went into the state senate for 8 years and is terming out this year.
So what are the special qualifications that you bring to this job that he doesn't?
Well, so there are 2 main responsibilities of the Office of Secretary of State. One is that you're the Chief Elections Officer, so you oversee all the qualification and ballot initiatives, the civic engagement of the state, how many people are voting, trying to find ways to make sure voters are better engaged and informed, and using, in part, technology to do that. The other side is that you're the Chief Business Registrar, so you have to make sure that when businesses sign up and register, that that's an easy process. There are many points of contact that I'm sure many of your listeners know who are small business owners with the Secretary of State, and it really is a service provider to small businesses around the state, so you have to make sure that you're running an organization that is providing a good service to small business owners. My background, particularly for the last 8 years, has been improving and encouraging greater civic engagement around the state, both through better processes and better technology. I also happen to be a former small business owner myself, and my wife currently is a small business owner. She owns an LLC. And so I've known and seen firsthand how poorly this office has performed, both in engaging Californians at the voting booth, but also in engaging small businesses. And I think I bring a very unique set of experiences and background, both in my private sector life, but also in the work I've been doing at Pepperdine for the last 7 or 8 years to this office.
You say you want to be the state's chief engagement officer. What do you mean by that?
Right. Well, I think if there's one thing I've learned in working with governments around the state for the last 8 years, is that they're not usually very good at reaching out to the public, listening to them, other than maybe caring occasionally when it comes time to vote. And then it's a very political type of relationship. And I think there really needs to be someone inside Sacramento who is working every day to, one, make sure voters are better informed and better involved, whether it's with political candidates or certainly all the initiatives that we're asked to vote on. And currently the state does a very poor job of doing that. As I said before, we're ranked 49th in this area. But I also have to say, especially on the business side, I speak with so many small business owners around the state that this engaging with the Secretary of State's office, whether it's the fact that you can't register your business online in California, you can't, as an LLC, file your statement of information online in California. There's that ridiculous $800 a year business franchise tax that we charge. I think that there really is a necessity for that Secretary of State to be doing so much more to engage voters and businesses, and so I came up with the phrase Chief Engagement Officer as a way to describe my vision for the office.
We're having a conversation with Pete Peterson, who is running for Secretary of State in California.
Pete, the $800 franchise tax is just one of many ridiculous taxes that our state government has.
That's right. Well, although it happens to be the one that when my wife was writing that check 2 years ago, really was something that came to my attention. She was, I'll never forget, it was like yesterday, she was writing out the check at the dining room table, and she said, Pete, I don't know where this money's going. It's obviously not going to the Secretary of State's website, which looks like it was built in 1996 or something like that. But it is a tax in particular that is levied by the state, that is a check that's written to the Secretary of State's office that we've tried to find out where that money goes, and we haven't been able to. So bringing transparency to where that tax money is going to, and also to let people know that it's the highest business franchise tax in the country. I think there needs to be a Secretary of State who makes the argument we need to make it easier and cheaper to start and run a business here in California, and that's something the Secretary of State has some jurisdiction over.
Now, as far as bringing transparency, you're not talking about the Obama-type transparency, are you?
No, that's a whole different kind of transparency. You know, my background, I happen to be, I've worked in this field of transparency and government budgets for several years now. I'm an advisor, actually, to a company that started up in Silicon Valley a couple of years ago called OpenGov. And essentially their work, and some of the work that I've been involved in at Pepperdine for the last few years, has been finding ways to use technology to better visualize municipal budgets in a way that a 10-year-old can understand how their tax money is being spent and where revenues are coming from. And I've pledged that upon becoming the next Secretary of State to, in the very least, make sure the Secretary of State's office budget is up online in a format that a 10-year-old can understand, because there's no reason now with the technology that's available not to do that.
Well, good. In that case, Pete, Clay and I will be able to understand it. I mean, it'll work fine.
I'm glad he included himself this time.
We've got about
Well, and again, I think it's one of the exciting things about, I mean, I'm not here to say that technology is solving all of our problems, but certainly as it pertains to getting a better read on what our government is doing in oftentimes what is described as a black box of government. Technology is providing really new ways of looking and understanding about how government is operating, and I'm looking to bring some of that background to the Secretary of State's office.
Mm-hmm. Pete, we've got about a minute and a half left. Tell us your website and how people can get a hold of you if they want to be more involved in your campaign.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. Again, the website is simply PeteSOS.com, PeteSOS.com. We also have a regularly updated Facebook page, which can be searched for just by searching Pete Peterson for Secretary of State. And my email, if people want to reach out to me directly, is simply Pete@PeteSOS.com.
PeteSOS.com.
So, Pete, do you have any other ambitions other than Secretary of State right now as far as your government position?
Well, I've said to a few people, if there's anything I've done well in my life over the last 15 years, it's just doing the next thing in front of me and doing it the best that I can. So this is an office I've pledged that I will only stand for re-election. I'm only going to run for re-election for this office for the next 4 years. But after 8 years is up, who knows what might be lying out there in the future. But I'm really excited about what could be done to transform this office.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to tell you, we really liked Dan Scher when he was running, and I don't see a lot of difference between the two of you. And as far as I'm concerned, Pete, you definitely have our vote, or my vote. I can't speak for Clay. But we would love to have you back before November and see what we can do to help.
Well, I'm still leaning towards Lehman Yee or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate this time, and I look forward to chatting again.
Definitely. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.